Hi, and welcome to Kate Anjou's Book Reviews, the place where we shine the spotlight on indie books and their authors. Today, I have the absolute delight of having one of my most favourite authors here. She is absolutely wonderful. And I tell you what, this might be the last interview, but never say that Kate doesn't go off with a bang. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Stephanie Kemler, and today we're going to be discussing her book, Bloodborn. Here. So Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really do appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I thank you so much for having me on the show. And yeah, I'm excited to get started.
Oh, fantastic. Me too. Cool. So as usual with these things, I just want you to just talk a little bit about yourself, a bit about who you are, and just to give it like a brief synopsis of what Bloodborn is about. Over to you.
Sure. My name is Stephanie Kemler. I am the author of the modern Gothic vampire romance series, the Bloodmad Duet. I know it's a lot. And it encompasses the two books, Bloodborn and Bloodmad. It's a completed series. If you want to binge the whole series, it's already out there. And I've been a professional writer now for about 4 years. I am a trained writer, but I didn't really get into novel writing until 4 or 5 years ago. And I live in Philadelphia. I did not know this, but it is one of the spookiest places I've ever lived. And down the road is this abandoned Gilded Age mansion. And like, it has this connection to Titanic. Like, it's like incredible. I know the whole story. And it's like, you can't even go in there. And it's like crumbling on the inside.
Is it condemned? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. But you can see the outside, and that is like down the road, and it is just so like, I don't know, I'm eating up the vibes of living here. So
I need to make a trip. I need to book a flight.
Obviously.
We can do a gal pal ghost hunting kind of.
Be so fun.
It'd be so much fun, right? I'll look into it. I'll call my agent.
And speaking of spooky stuff, Bloodborn and Bloodmad are the story of a young woman named Mina Coffin, which is my favorite name. And if I could change my name to Mina Coffin, I would. And she's in her 20s. She's experiencing all the normal things of her 20s. Family drama, establishing her career. She's, has a messy love life and trying to figure out her sexuality. However, she is the descendant of a centuries-old blood cult. And the backstory is that in the 1300s, in Transylvania, of all places, the plague there changed their DNA of this little village, of the people in the village, and they needed blood to survive. They needed to consume blood. So about half the people in the village figured out through trial and error that if they took blood, donated in a cup, then they could keep themselves alive. And that practice turned into a tradition, turned into a faith. So the Bloodborn people are this secret underground blood cult faith. And then other people in the village decided to give into their bloodlust and, destroy all their neighbors, take all their blood. They got fangs. They created their own society based on power and privilege and like violence and strength. And they are known as the Bloodmad. So we have modern day Mina, and the first book, through a terrible accident, she turns and becomes Bloodmad. And it's not a spoiler, like we know this early on in the book. And the first book is her trying to deal with it, trying to figure out keeping secrets and how to live with this new identity as it's unfolding. And then book 2, she throws caution to the wind, gives into her bloodlust, and becomes sort of what we would think of more classically as a vampire. And she's trying to figure herself out through that process too. So those are the 2 books. That's the Bloodmad Duet.
Cool. Yeah, it's quite, because in your books there's this really kind of interesting sort of take with the narrative, and you kind of give us little hints as to what might happen. Like it's like almost breaking the fourth wall. Like you kind of talk to your readers, to your audience, and it's like, you know, like, oh, little did, you know, Mina know that she'd come to regret this conversation forever, or like this is going to be like a real turning point kind of thing. And it's like, it was really interesting because I don't really know, I mean, I'm not saying it's the only book that's ever done that, but I haven't really come across that before. And what it does is it creates this sort of like, you think everything's nice, and then like you read that and you're like, God damn it.
The whole book is like that.
Like, yeah, like I think I messaged you at one point, didn't I? And I was just like, well, everything's great, so everything's clearly going to go wrong. So yeah,
clearly.
Like, I'm so uncomfortable right now, damn it. Like, it should be nice. I should be enjoying this, but no, because I know how this is going to, like, you know, go. It's going to all go to shit. So, and yeah, like, was that like, what made you kind of think of doing that?
I am a big fan of Thomas Hardy as my favorite author of all time. I've read almost all of his books. And this kind of like 19th century, it's called like third person omniscient with authorial intrusion. I can never say that. And authors of that era were another character. Like, the narrators were inserting themselves in the story. And I think it started to become natural to me because I think the books have such legend and lore in them, and I built that whole system. And I love those stories that are like an oral history, and you're getting, I don't know, the idea of like sitting in front of a campfire and telling these stories and being introduced to them from a narrator and from someone who has an intimate relationship with the listeners. And so between those two, like my love of naturalist literature, my love of 19th century literature, and then the type of books that they are, yeah, it just came out that way. And it came out that way naturally, which was very weird to me because
You're not a pantser.
Not the way I talk. In my head, I'm very like, I don't know, intellectual, using fancy words, whatever. And then when I talk to you, I'm like, it's all cursing and slang and like whatever.
Out in people.
Right. So it was a neat experience to figure out my own narrative voice, and I did that through the process of writing Bloodborn. I didn't have that when I wrote it. So it's a neat thing as an author to sort of step into your voice.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, it was just like, it's because you mentioned about like the way that it kind of goes through and everything. I remember that you did that, and I was like, I should ask about that. I wanted to talk to you about it's kind of a general question. It's basically when I was reading it, it's that really good thing that I love about fantasy, about any kind of good book, but I really particularly like it in fantasy and horror, where you have like these very otherworldly things happening, these very kind of like unrelatable scenarios, but they, through like themes and things, I'm going to be talking a lot about the themes in this interview, just simply because this book is rife with so much symbology and you know, thematic like matters and stuff. So I will be talking a lot about the themes, but just to start off with a more general question, the themes that kind of come through, despite the fact that it's about vampires and whatever, like, they're still so relatable. It reminded me of Buffy, the show Buffy, because like Buffy, and one of the reasons why I feel Buffy is just so timeless is because although, you know, it's vampires and it's monsters and it's, you know, all of this, and, you know, like with Buffy, like, all right, you know, those shoes are definitely not in fashion anymore, but the things that go through, the human experiences that are dressed up in all of these monstrous entities are still so real, they're still so relatable. And so yeah, like, you know, you have like one scene that I may well mention later is when Mina tells her boyfriend that she's a vampire, and he rejects her, and he's like, it's not like he's terrified or anything like that, because I don't think he is, but it's more like, oh, not okay with that, like, and and it's like, I need to take some space, I don't really know who you are anymore, I need to kind of reevaluate who you are to me, and it's that sort of thing. And it really reminded me of coming out, like, as with your sexuality, to someone that you care about, and them just kind of being taken aback by it, and like not giving you that reassurance that you absolutely want and need in that time. Because, like, you know, like, especially in the last like 20 years, that's very much still a thing that people for some reason care about. Like, I think maybe it's different now, but I also know in a lot of places it isn't. And for me, my coming out experience was a little bit like that. So again, it's one of these things where, like, you have these very kind of like bizarre situations, but the underlying problems within them that Mina and Marsden and Ebb and everyone else like go through are still unbelievably relatable. And I just, you know, wanted to ask whether that was like scenes like that where it's kind of about one thing but also seems to be about another. Is that something that you intentionally did, or is that kind of just came through more organically in the writing and it was more subconscious? But
That's great. Yeah, something I like about you know, a show like Buffy, or I have a great enduring love for the Vampire Diaries books, not the show. Favorite?
Yeah,
they're my favorite. And I mean, they're dated, but I think that something that always stands out to me is you can read it on one level. You can read it or you can watch these shows as pure entertainment. And they're meant to entertain. They're meant to, you know, get you intrigued and wanting to watch the next episode or read the next book. And I love that, you know, I have all different kinds of readers and I've had all different kinds of feedback. And many people are reading it on, I hesitate to say surface level, because, you know, I think they're taking it really holistically, but reading it for entertainment value. Yeah. And then there are a lot of people who can dig in and really find, I think, weighty and meaty themes in it. And that's so much like all the books I love. That's so much like all the media that I really love, where you can think about it in all different ways. In terms of intent, yeah, actually, I mean, I could talk about like sexuality and Bloodborn all damn day.
Yeah.
Good. But in particular, that scene, actually, when Mina starts turning after this terrible accident, I kind of had it in my head that it would be loosely metaphorical to, you know, a trans person, where their body is changing and they're trying to figure out like who they are, like, as this changes, and like their identity. And yeah, then when
self and how to tell other people in a society where it's upon, you know. Yeah, I get that.
And you know, queerness, of course. And I write just in all these different layers. I describe the way that I write as if I'm kind of creating a painting and I'm doing a sketch. And the first sketch is like dialogue, character, scene, really simple, almost like a play that you would read. And then I start layering. Then I have, I get into more of the action, more of the meat of the scene. I get into the characterization and how they use language. And then the last kind of touches on it are when I inject more theme. And then the very final touches are when I make it the mood of the whole piece. And yeah, part of it is it's honest to Mina's experience. And then part of it is like, I'm pulling these things out and putting attention on them because it is relevant to so many, like, your experience. And I think a lot of people who might relate to Mina on a level where her age and her gender and stuff, but then her specific circumstances can really, in many ways, be relatable. So yeah, it's intent, and then it's kind of organic. It's both at once.
Yeah, like you kind of like it comes up sort of organically, but then you kind of run with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Okay, cool. So if we, I mean, to be honest, if we're talking about like sexuality in the LGBTQI plus community and things, I'll just kind of skip ahead to straight to the question. So we have two main romantic leads as such, as in who we really see her being with, Mina being with. They're both male. There's Marsden and then there's Gregor.
I see the smile there when you say his name.
Greg,
like, and then Gregor.
Greg,
I love him too. Yeah. I love them all.
Gregor just, I mean, Marsden's sweet or whatever, I guess, but like,
I love it.
I didn't even realize that I did that.
It's incredible.
That's so embarrassing. Yeah, so like she also has had a relationship with a woman, and we'll talk a bit about Lucy. And yes, for those who are catching on, Mina and Lucy are very intentional names. Yes. And it's also referenced in the book, like these names like Ebenezer and things, they are intentionally done by their dad. Yeah, so like it's intentionally on the nose for everyone who's like going anyway, so yeah, so she was with someone called Lucy, who is this like horrifically cruel, abusive person. She literally preys upon Lucy, like not just emotionally, but she physically harms her and feeds off her, and it's really full on. But like, you know, she does have this love for her, like it wasn't like pure manipulation. There was, you know, like she did love a woman, she was, you know, with a woman, so you know, she has that bisexuality. Her brother Eb, he's openly gay, and you know, there's this discussion around the dinner table when Mina goes and gets help, and then she goes and stays with one of her brothers, Hawkthorne, who is part of this very traditional community of their faith, and she's round her new boyfriend Gregor. His families, they're having dinner, and Ed's there, and the discussion of him being gay, because I think is that where he mentions it. I can't remember if he mentions his partner or if his partner's there. I think he mentions his partner, doesn't he?
His partner is not there, but yeah.
It comes.
His partner kind of comes in later, but yeah,
it comes up that he's gay and he's open. And there's this. It's really subtle. But I think again, for anyone who's kind of like been in a scenario like that, where Gregor's mum, like, although claims to have no issue with people's sexuality, she kind of deems it inappropriate dinner talk, and which just to me is like, but you're quite happy discussing Mina and Gregor's relationship whenever. And there's this kind of like, and Eb he brushes it off like he's probably used to it and things like that, and it's not, you know, obviously nothing that he's saying was explicit. It wasn't, you know, he wasn't talking about sex or anything, he was just generally talking about his sexuality. And again, as someone who is pansexual, like this resonated with me, and I thought it was quite like an interesting addition to the scene. Like it didn't necessarily move plot along or anything, but it was like a very natural, organic part, and it is the type of conversations that like gay people and LGBTQ plus people will come across, where it's kind of like, I'm okay with it, but as long as I don't have to hear about it, you know.
Right, exactly.
And sorry, getting to the point. Again, I wanted to know whether like those discussions and those kind of like things that happen like that, and people having those different experiences within their sexuality, and some of it being like perfectly fine and going off and having relationships and having like a very kind of normal like relationship lifestyle, and then those who are more like closeted and or who have, like Mina has a hard time necessarily struggling with her sexuality, like sometimes, especially because it's so tied into the abuse that she dealt with. Is that something, without getting like too personal on it, but is that like something that you were able to pull from either yourself or like other people who you have like spoken to? Is that because it really hit the nail on the head? As I said, it was a very subtle thing, but it really just hit that nail on the head. And I was just wondering, like, the exploration of sexuality and the different experiences that people have within this book, like, is that coming from, like, is that just something you have very good intuition for, or is that something that you've pulled from like actual experience?
Definitely actual experience. I'm happy to talk about it with anyone but my parents. deeply closeted on many levels with my folks. But I had this, I guess, faith journey over the last, well, for a very long time. I was Roman Catholic my whole life and very devout. I'm still a very devout person. I taught at a Catholic school. I worked in my parish, like deeply, deeply embedded, and at the same time keeping this secret that I'm bisexual and like navigating the world that way, and then really kind of closeting it in myself. And it wasn't until, I guess it was like 2017, 2018. Funny circumstances, but basically overnight, I was at a traditional Roman Catholic church on a Sunday. The next Sunday, I was at a queer affirming independent Catholic church. And yeah, independent Eucharistic community, people get upset when you call it Catholic. But it is a teeny tiny little church. It's my favorite thing in the world. I was just there yesterday. And, it's sort of an island of misfit toys. If they would be okay with that. And it's all these people who come from a traditional faith background and were not comfortable bringing themselves fully to the altar, and were not comfortable bringing themselves fully in conversation or with their family or in their culture. And yeah, it resonated so much with me, and it was such a big part of my lived experience, unpacking everything, understanding everything, and a lot of, although it's not clearly autobiographical because I don't belong to a Romanian blood cult, but
we know
this kind of, right, exactly, this kind of hiding in plain sight, and then finding a home for yourself and the people that you love and the people that understand you. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to think of it that way. I'm also kind of an amateur theologian, highlighting amateur, but I consume anything I can about, different faiths and different like faith communities. And so I did think about it theologically when I was putting together the faith, when I was creating the faith that Mina practices. I thought about the implications of that. Like, it's very, I guess, period forward, like period affirming, and women's cycles, right? And women's cycles are part of their theology. And when you're thinking about that, like you're thinking about like inborn fertility and like how that affects your relationship to your faith. And that's this conversation that they have at the dinner table. And they bring up this theological understanding of, if blood is so important, don't we need that polarity? Don't we need that polarity between, traditional female and traditional male gender roles? And Ed brings it up and he quotes Shakespeare and he says, "If you prick us, do we not bleed?" Yeah. And basically saying blood is blood, like blood is the same. And, this is something we share. And I think that at the beginning, it mirrored my faith experience. As I was writing, I was processing a lot of that I hadn't thought of for many years. And then I think it evolved into fully Mina's story and fully, Eb's story. And the funny thing is, I mean, it's not funny, but with Mina and Lucy, that, Lucy is this sort of predatory character, but Mina having, two relationships with men and a past relationship with a woman, it reflects like a lot of bisexual experience, a lot of pansexual experience, where if you're with a partner of the opposite sex, you can kind of be straight passing. And some people call it straight privilege. And it's not, like it can be very damaging to pass as straight. And when I was sending my manuscript around to different publishers, I found this indie press, and they specialized in queer stories and in like horror, gothic, whatever. So I sent it to them, and they were seemingly very gracious when they responded. But basically the message was that my book wasn't queer enough. And I was like, yes, that face exactly. I just was like, what? And I think because there is so much bi-erasure and because there is so much, I guess, biphobia within and without the queer community, I think it's really hard for people to sit with the fact that you can be fully bisexual or be fully pansexual and also have a partner of the opposite sex.
Because if you weren't, you'd be gay. You'd just be a lesbian.
Right.
You know, that's fine, but that's not who I am. I am, you know, I like everything. I like everyone, you know. And, you know, to quote Schitt's Creek, is like, I like the content of the bottle. The label doesn't really bother me. You know, like this, and I think this is what people don't understand. Like, and not to get like too philosophical, but I think people kind of, or the other way around, where it's just like, oh well, you can't possibly like women because you've only had relationships with men, and it's just like,
right.
Did you know that you only like someone of the opposite sex even when you hadn't slept with them? Like, did you? You did. Oh, okay. You know, like it's there's a lot of complexities and a lot of different perspectives that people have, and like I feel like unless you are that sexuality, like you don't know my experience and don't know what's going on in my head, you certainly don't know what's going on in my junk. So like you know, just like, and I feel like at that conversation, yeah, and you know, saying like, you know, blood is blood, it's like, well, love is love, you know, and it's like, it shouldn't matter. I mean, as long as everyone is above age and, you know, consenting and everything, like it really shouldn't matter who you fall in love with, because it's the same thing. And it's like, it's that thing as well of these types of, because, you know, I don't want to say like these types of communities, because I don't want to be like jipping anybody out, but like when you have like more cult things, it's about keeping it kind of in the family and things. It's all kind of a bit incestuous, because they never want, they're so secular, you know, they don't want anyone else coming in and like, you know, potentially criticizing or knowing things or anything like that. And it ends up being this kind of a level of toxicity about it. So I really like appreciated the fact that Ed sort of stood his ground on it. But again, it wasn't like, it was, you know, obviously they were talking about sexuality and things, but again, it was tied into all the law and the rules and the lifestyles of this community as well. But it was, again, still so relatable to any other dinner conversation that you might have with someone who's a bit, you know, homophobic. You know, so again, it was just, it was just a really, and there's all these little scenes just like that dotted about in this book. It's just, while this book can be very like full on and explicit, not sexually, actually, that was the thing I was going to say about, actually, there's like, the smile is very like chill, but I have maybe in book 2 it explores.
Maybe, possibly.
But in terms of like, you know, you don't shy away from gore, you don't shy away from like trauma and like PTSD and, you know, abuse and those things, but at the same time there's like a lot of subtleties like just woven in that like you can take or you can leave, but like if you notice them and stuff, it's like, mwah, so good.
And I think that one of the biggest themes in the series is keeping secrets and the toll that takes on people. And a huge thing that Mina is keeping secret is not only her sexuality. So it makes her, not in flashbacks, but in mentions of her relationship with Lucy, it makes those moments where she had to keep that a secret from her culture, that Lucy is a woman, and then also keeping the secret that Lucy is Bloodmad, because the Bloodborn want to have nothing to do with the Bloodmad, and how dangerous that is to Mina, that she is, it's one of the reasons why Lucy is able to take advantage of Mina, and in a great word, is able to prey on Mina, because Mina can't really have any honesty with people about this relationship.
You can turn to about it, and that is so often the case with abusive relationships. You know, people like abusers will just break that circle down until you're completely isolated, and then, you know, that's when they really like unleash their full horror. And, you know, it's so predatorial. And exactly, I mean, Lucy is a predator in every single sense of the word, like, you know, metaphorically, physically, like literally, like everything. Like, she is pure predator. She's ruthless. She will do anything to get what she wants. She'll use people and hurt people, and, you know, but she's also charming. She's also beautiful, and she's smart, and she's all of these things to kind of entice you in. And it's like a Venus flytrap, you know. That's it, and no one's going to find you. And because of all of the taboos, you know, quote unquote, that is sort of shrouded in their relationship, like, it makes it impossible. Mina has nowhere to turn. There's no one to turn to. And so what else is she going to do? Like, she's just got to survive and do what she can. And it's such a common situation, heartbreakingly so, where you just feel so isolated and secluded. So yeah, it's a really interesting, I mean, like, trauma and stuff, like the tie-in of secrets and trauma, and just not being able to like move on or deal with it, and just spiraling. And, you know, because it's, yeah, it's, again, it's a very realistic issue. And then, you know, looking at Lucy as, because, yeah, you're right, Lucy doesn't come up in it too much. It's usually through either a flashback or like a retelling from Mina's perspective. But found really interesting, and obviously it ties in with like a lot of the themes that we've talked about, but it is that she is a woman, and having an abuser who's a woman is something that we don't, like, society just kind of tries to hush up, like,
right. And I've had
no, sorry, I was just gonna say, and again, it's the secret shame. No, carry on with what you were saying.
What's been a huge surprise to me is I've had male readers reach out and sort of not confess to me, but confide in me that they've been through an abusive relationship with a female companion. And when I was writing it, I tried to read a lot of accounts of people in abusive relationships, just to get a better understanding of it. And so I took that responsibility really seriously, because I was thinking, if I'm going to represent a scenario, if I'm going to represent someone's lived experience, I want to shepherd that as well as I can, and to do it sensitively and as accurately as I can. So then to have people with that experience, it was really touching and really humbling. And I think for a lot of people with female partners, there's, especially men, they're not acculturated to talk about feelings. They're not acculturated to, in general, confide in people, especially about a situation that they might feel by the culture they're being emasculated. And I think that was something that, a reason that people reached out, and I had multiple people reach out. And gosh, it's heartbreaking. But they felt really, as they said to me, they felt really seen and really heard and recognized. And I think that's the heart of representation in any book. Yeah. Is that you feel like your identity, you feel like your lived experience is confirmed in some way when you find it in art, when you find it in shows, when you find it in books. And I think that, you know, I find Lucy very fun to write. I mean, because she's a villain's villain. She has no remorse. She's completely, there's no morally gray. She's like morally bankrupt. And I think, so in that way, it's fun. It's fun to have like a kind of purely demonic influence to write. And then also to see how I could represent that in a way that was convincing, and that, you know, and you're seeing it through Mina's lens, and you're seeing this kind of PTSD hallucinatory experiences that she has with Lucy the whole time in the whole book, where she has this like hunting presence that's always there in every scene.
Foreboding kind of presence, looming yeah, and that I imagine if you've suffered abuse like that is kind of what it's like for at least a while, because you're just on edge all the time. What if that reminds me?
And I don't think for any experience that you fully grasp the gravity of it until you're out of it. And I think with Mina's experience, she does mention in a few points in the book that she had been raped at a family wedding when she was 13. Yeah. And it's no secret, like it comes up early. And I think that it's kind of like part of this unfolding, part of this taking apart her experience is as she's having conversations, as the book moves forward, she's really understanding what that meant. And she's really sitting with it and getting some perspective. And I think it's the same with her experience with Lucy, is as she separated herself from the situation, she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about this. Oh, I didn't think about that. And I say that like she didn't notice all the red flags at the time, and she didn't notice how predatory Lucy had been. And yeah, it was those two things. It was partially, that I wanted to faithfully represent someone's experience, and then partially, gosh, Lucy's fun to write. She's the best. I love a villain's villain. I get so tired of these backstories that
like an origin story of like, here's my trauma and this is why I just want a Hannibal Lecter, although Hannibal Lecter was given a backstory in the end. God damn it.
Yeah. Some people are just rotten. Some people just choose evil, and that's their choice, and they might not come from any kind of like
Ted Bundy did
tragic. Right. They might not come from some tragic backstory. They might just be like, I don't know, a regular person who then little by little makes these worse and worse choices until the point where that's just who they are. And I love dark romance. I love gothic romance, but there is that, like the bad guy or the lead character is morally gray, but they have a heart of gold, or they've had this tragic backstory.
Very romanticized, like
yes.
And even if they are like cruel and things, like they'll burn worlds for this one person.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Or like it'll be like, oh yeah, but like, all right, he's horrible, but you know what, he killed my rapist father, so it's okay. Like.
And that's part of the fun. I love tropes. I love those romance novels. But I wanted to give it like a different spin that would also fit into this, I guess, sort of 19th century melodrama of like the bad guy's kind of a bad guy. Like, let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, well, everyone has to be a nice person. You can still love a character and they be absolute dog shit, like that whole like love to hate them, hate to love them kind of thing, like it's great. It's I loved it. And I think as well, just like with her being this female villain, obviously, like we've talked a bit about also obviously the lure of writing such a character is that it's very fun and you get to be really playful with it and go to some really dark places. But obviously, like, I mean, her character is extremely dark. Like there's no two ways about it. What she does to Mina is so sadistic. Like she essentially just makes her a buffet for her and all of her friends. And then makes Mina believe that that's what love is, so obviously you've spoken about how you've had like a lot of male readers come forward in terms of like their own experiences, which, my God, fair play to them. And I'm so glad that they felt seen and heard. Like that is so wonderful. Like it's awful that they've had to go through that, but for them to get a bit of respite through this book is phenomenal. So but like the general kind of like audience, because she's female, like Lucy's female and an abuser, like because as you said, like it's kind of like brushed under the carpet. Men feel emasculated, they don't want to talk about it. People are like, oh, what, you got beat up by a girl, and like all of shit. How have you had much response from like other people in terms of like their perceptions of power and abuse from a woman, and how how that narrative can be flipped? Have you had much response from that?
Actually, no. I think it's either been people, seeing Lucy on kind of a more superficial, fun vampire level, or people who have had this like deep kind of wrestling with trauma experience. And I haven't had a lot of overlap because I think it would be hard to have overlap in that way. But I think people who love vampire stories are kind of aching to have female villains. Because if we look at, what inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula was Carmilla from someone Le Fanu. That's his last name. Anyway, and it's two teenage lesbian vampires that was written in like 1874 or something. And there is that archetype, I think, that is poorly represented or underrepresented in a lot of Gothic horror, a lot of Gothic fiction. And I think that is something that is exciting to fans of vampire stories, that, oh my gosh, finally we have like this female villain.
Yeah.
Not that it doesn't occur. Like there are, serious and exciting and big presence, like villains like that, female villains. But I think there's like a yearning for that more in stories, to kind of have like the monsters be of as many genders and as many presentations as we can try to have.
I think there's definitely like an imbalance in the ratio between, like, it's like, yes, there are female villains around, of course, but like compared to any male villains we get, and also as well, just like having a female villain who, as you said, doesn't have an origin story. Like usually a female villain is because, oh, she got raped and then she's all men, or like she was abused as a child, all of those kind of like typical things. But the fact that Lucy is just like, no, she's just fucking evil.
right.
She woke up today and chose violence.
Exactly.
It's that kind of thing. And I think that's what makes it even more interesting as well. I mean, even if you look, funnily enough, you mentioned Carmilla, like, if you look at the Castlevania stories with Carmilla and stuff, but she still has like a history of being used by men, of being abused by men in Castlevania and things. And, so even though she's like a complete baddie, no pun intended, and like she's, very astute and she's driven and she's like heartless, but it still kind of comes from like an emotional standpoint. And I feel like a lot of female villains have to have this emotional sort of catalyst, which almost speaks to this like diatribe of women can't control their emotions. Oh, she had a bad day, so now she wants to destroy the world,
which is kind of true, like
but like but again, I feel like it's a very male driven narrative. Like a man he'll want to do it because he wants power, he wants to do it because he wants wealth, or he wants, but it's rare that it's actually from a place of like emotional source, whereas the female villains, they're usually some sort of emotional root of it all, whereas Lucy's just crazy. For crazy's sake.
I think that was like something that was important to me in terms of, I guess, representation. But I think that takes away from women's agency and kind of infantilizes them in terms of like, oh, they can't make those evil choices. Like they're, like you said, that they're under the thrall of their feelings, but also like that perhaps women don't have the sophistication to do it for power, to do it for sadism or whatever. And I think if you look at, even sentencing in the US or, prison population in the US, juries tend to like hold back on women. And I think because it is that, oh, they can't possibly be that bad. Like they can't possibly be that evil. And
when they are so horrified by it, you do a woman.
Right. And I started digging in a bit more to The Girl from Plainville on Hulu, and it's got not Elle Woods. Oh my gosh. Elle, what the heck is her name?
That's the third movie that we didn't know we needed.
No.
That's the next sequel.
Oh my gosh, what the heck is her name? Elle Fanning. Elle Fanning. And it's about the young woman who like bullied her boyfriend to death on like texting.
That case. Yeah, because it's a true story, right?
Yeah. And it's horribly tragic, of course. I mean, as all these stories are, but she had an otherwise nice family and had all the privileges in the world, and yet she was doing these wicked, terrible, evil, destructive things. And I think that people can tend to over sympathize with female characters, female villains, in true crime stories, the perpetrators who might be women. And I wanted to give Lucy full intelligence, full agency, the mental and strategic sophistication to do something like that. And I love that in other stories. Like I have my own qualms about Game of Thrones, but like Cersei Lannister is incredible. Like she is just pure selfish evil, and I love it. And I know that you recently interviewed Sabrina Vorman, who wrote Ashen Heart, and that was the second book in her series. And the character Torinia is very similar. She is power hungry, and she's making only decisions that benefit her. And that is such a cool flipping of the script. And when I find these books, when I find these fictionalized accounts, I think it's so cool. I think it's so exciting to give female characters those lead villain characteristics.
Yeah, and I think as well, what's really good about the examples that you've given there is that like we like those people, often. They're not like, these power hungry women and they're just bossy and they're really mean and like, and it's something to be frowned on. It's something to be celebrated, and as audiences, whether it's watching Game of Thrones, reading a book, whatever, we're there like going, fuck yeah, girl, get it. Right. Whereas I think of Miranda Priestley, Miranda Priestley and Devil Wears Prada?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it was Miranda. I just couldn't remember if I'd made the
No, you did. Nice.
Memory. But yeah, so she's driven, she's powerful, she's successful, she's a mother, she does all the things, and yet don't get me wrong, I love Devil Wears Prada before everyone asks me, fuck me, but like but we're seen to like see that as a bad thing. We're seen to see her as being cold, calculating, and just because she's got high standards and she's not afraid to tell people how it is, and she's not afraid to kind of like cut loose dead weight, sorry Anne Hathaway, or anything like that. And that thing now where people are watching that film with kind of modern day eyes, where it's just like, actually the villain of the piece is her boyfriend. Like he's not supportive.
Oh my gosh, he's the worst.
Yeah, and like he's happy because she's forwarding herself in a career that she wants and she's doing well, and yes, she has to make sacrifice, but like it's this expectation of a woman has to do everything and get everything right all the time and be able to spin all of these plates and not let any of them drop. And if she doesn't, then she's selfish, and if she does, she's a dickhead. And it's like whereas you have characters like Cersei and things where it's just, as I said, you're like, yeah, that she's awesome, she's
only in fictionalized accounts. We should have that disclaimer, only in fictionalized accounts, that I'm like, damn, get it, girl.
Yeah I mean, yeah.
But Cersei, I think that there's so many great examples. And fun fact about Elle Fanning is that she is my celebrity face claim for Lucy. I had Elle Fanning in mind every time I described her. And I don't like to give.
I imagine her with like long curly hair, like blonde curls and stuff. Actually, do you know what's so funny? I actually had her envisioned a little bit like this influencer who has a mane of like blonde hair. She's called Ray in Wonderland. I don't know if she's a book talk influencer, but like she has this like massive mane and like of like
blonde. Oh my gosh, send it over.
Yeah.
I love a good face claim.
She's gone a little bit quiet because she's just had a baby, but like her content's great. She's so funny. She's like a fantasy romancy babe, like so yeah, she's good. Ray in Wonderland if anyone wants to follow her. Also follow me though before you follow her, because rude.
That's how you find her out. That's how you figure out who it is, right? Gateway.
Yeah, like who like maybe, I mean, yeah, Elle Fanning's a good one. Maybe like what's her name? Oh, I suppose she'd be a bit old though now. That's the thing, like my like knowledge of actors is like firmly in the 2000s. So I'm like, oh, what about this person? Oh, they're like 40. Okay. I was thinking of what's her face. She was that actress who turned up in a lot of like, oh, you could have Micah Monroe. Maybe she's still a little bit old, but who was in It Follows and The Guest.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
shoot me, DM me a picture, because I love a good face claim. And it's funny because my friend, our friend, Jillian Dowell, the other side. Oh yeah, she's up there. She's everywhere.
She's everywhere. Yeah, I've got her there too.
Right. She's the best. Yeah. But she gifted me the face claim for Neezy, for Mina's brother Eb. And he is a young model named, the account name is Arab Atticus. And he is spot on. I will send it to you.
Now?
I will. Oh my gosh. And it's so funny because for me, like these face Air, like H-E-I-R. Of.
Oh, okay.
Atticus. Atticus.
Oh, okay. Atticus.
Are you looking it up? Oh my gosh. It more in book 2, because once she sent that to me, I was like, oh my, like
you could see.
Yeah. If you look at his reels. Pardon?
I imagine him balded and beardy for some reason. Like a
young beard, but he has short hair. And then as the story evolves in book 2, it grows and it's a little bit more tangly, and I don't know. He's got he softens up as the books go forward, I think.
Yeah. I specifically didn't read Bloodmad before because I didn't want to be like referring it too much or like letting that could be considered a spoiler. So the reason listeners watch is why I don't why I'm going ooh really is because I actually just haven't read it yet, but I'm so excited. But yeah, okay. I mean, I guess with this one you could also do a Timothy Chalamet as well.
He would work, but I feel like he just doesn't have that grit that Neezy needs. Like I feel like he doesn't call anyone on their bullshit, and Eb calls Mina on her bullshit constantly.
I don't know,
and I love it. He's incredible. I think, and I don't know if you're going to ask this or not, but my brother is 16 months older than me, and we've been best friends our whole life. And when we were little kids, he had bunk beds, but sometimes like we would share like the same bunk.
Where that came from?
And pardon?
Where that came from? Like she has nightmares and gets into bed. Oh, that's so cute.
And it's so true. And he's a musician, and I spent so much time backstage when he would do like open mics or have his band or whatever. It's trying to figure out what to do, like other than ogling like some of his bandmates who were super cute. But that experience of being best friends with your like next closest sibling, and there's little moments of like him being a musician, and I didn't super intentionally model it after that, but you know, when it was done, I was like, oh, it reminds me so much of my brother, and I told him all about it, and it was just it was a special moment, I think.
That's very cute. So you don't have like a brother like Hawthorne or anything?
Okay, so this is funny. This I just realized like in the last year. Me and 5 of my cousins grew up, I was the youngest, we're pretty much raised by my grandmother. So we all grew up like siblings. Like we were always at each other's houses. All summer was at my grandmother's all together. And the relationship and the dynamic between a lot of those siblings and the cousins and whatever is so similar to the dynamic between Mina and her 5 older brothers. And I was reading somewhere that people who don't have siblings, when they write, they tend to. When they write siblings, they're like, "Oh, hello, brother. Like, it is nice to see you." And it's not universal.
The
But then people,
like, "Hey, dickhead, get out of my seat."
right. And there's this moment where one of the twins, Hark, is basically mortal enemies with Hawthorne, and their personalities couldn't be more different.
Oh, yeah. For those who haven't read the book, Hawthorne is so uptight. He's very conservative, like very stoic. He doesn't like let on. He's like an old, grumpy, like strict old headmaster type kind of.
Yes.
You know, whereas like Hark rather is just like, he's like they kind of reminded me of the Weasley twins a little bit, just but like not cute, like just you will never know what's going to happen around them, and they will make sure that you are involved.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this one moment where I was telling one of Mina's boyfriends about the twins. And he's like, yeah, like they were just giving these cops acid and like all these crazy things that they do. Yeah. And Hawthorne is named intentionally after like Nathaniel Hawthorne because it is that very like Scarlet Letter kind of puritanical spirit. And Harker lives to instigate. And all he does, his main focus is to like poke at Hawthorne until Hawthorne bites back. And I have 2 cousins, they are siblings, exactly like that. Like one is very serious and has like a hair trigger temper. The other one's super funny and an instigator. And it used to blow up in our faces all the time. And, you know, looking back, I think of it somewhat fondly because no matter what, we were together, no matter what, we were a unit. And I feel like Mina and her brothers have that dynamic that they're all in it together and they're all in this weird bloodborne life, each figuring it out on their own in all different ways. And that closeness and that what I think is realism was fun to express and felt like really authentic to different personalities in like a sibling group or an extended sibling group.
Yeah. No, definitely. I really do agree. I don't have any brothers and sisters, but I did have some friends on my street who literally live like on my street, and my mum, their mum were best friends. We would spend every day after school like hanging out, and the girl was 1 year below me, so she was a little bit like a little sister, and the boy was 1 year above me, and we would like we'd hang out with best of friends, but then like we'd squabble, we'd like get me to do like these, because I was one of those kids that's just like all you had to say was dares you, and I did it. Which they knew. They would just get me doing the most stupid reckless bullshit and then like leave me in the lurch, you know. Like it's just dumb stuff like that all the time. So like I don't have any brothers and sisters, but thinking about like those people who were as close to brothers and sisters like I had at that time, it seemed like a very kind of authentic sort of like this person has these experiences as well, just because that kind of thing of like, you know, you love each other, you know, you're always going to be family, but like I will punch you in the face if you do that again. You know,
right. Yeah, your experience is like so much like that, and I love that about the story. My publisher is Curious Corbett and Publishing, and the founder of that is Raven White, and she had said, she's like, your books are creepy and comforting at the same time. And she's like, there is this like warmth about it that like shouldn't be there. But she's like, you do have these like family moments and not in like a Hallmark family moment, but you have these familiar moments that give it this warmth that makes it hard to categorize. It made the book a little bit stranger in the genre and a little bit tricky to market. because you don't see it very often. You don't get like creeped out and comforted in like the same book.
Yeah. And it just comes down to the authenticity of the writing, you know, and the experiences that these characters are sharing, because they're based on real experiences and like kind of real people as well. You know, so, you know, I mean, real families for the most part, those Hallmark movies, those like TV shows, you know, they're not real. That's not how families are. That's a very idealistic interpretation of like the perfect family. You know, real families curse at each other, smack each other upside the head, they like, you know, get on each other's absolute fucking tits, and like, but then at the end of the day, you hug, you say I love you, you know. And even like friendships, like I've got a friend and it's just like we'll have like wine together, and we'll get to like a certain point in the night, that inevitable point in the night where it's like, I love you so much, like everything, and then it's like, all right, shut up, dickhead. All right, you know, like, oh, this is too
right.
just fuck off, cunt. You know, like,
and
you know, so it's and I guess that's, I thought that was kind of a British thing, but I guess not. Like that's that whole no, yeah, I love that. I think that's real. You know, I think it's real. I think that's why this book has that familiarity and that comfort, because you see the sort of situations in your own life. Again, like I've said, you see the situations in your own life, despite all the weirdness going on in this book. It's all very relatable and accessible, and you know, and not all of it is doom and gloom, because nothing's all doom and gloom. So again, very authentic. So good job.
I accept the compliment. And my brother was really pivotal to helping me craft their faith, because he was a musician. He's now an anthropologist. Like he's an adjunct professor, which is a little awkward. And he helped me so much with understanding, like I was completely behind and the creator of the liturgy and the scripture and all that, but to kind of understand how religion behaves to make it more authentic. So it's really special to me to not only have, you know, a nod to him in the book, perhaps many nods to him in the book, and then have him helping out with the story. Was like, I don't know, you could tell I'm like, I have very fond feelings for the whole thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like that's really obvious through the writing, and especially like near the end and things, where like they all kind of just put all their bullshit aside and come together and help and work out what's going on, and you know, and just supporting each other is yeah, I think like all of the things that happened at the end, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but all the things that happened at the end, if they weren't there, then all of those moments that we've had in between, like the camping trip and like her, the you know, the stealing day and all of those things, like that's kind of all, it wouldn't be all for nothing, but it would be left feeling a little bit empty, like if these kind of coming together and these sort of building of bridges and stuff at the end didn't sort of like transpire. So yeah, like it has to have that warmth, otherwise it doesn't work, you know. When if you're going to bring these types of characters and these types of like relationships, if that doesn't sort of like have its own arc, then it kind of falls flat. So yeah. So I've got some kind of quick questions for you.
Okay.
So rock music, you mentioned obviously that Neezy's in a band and like she tours around with them. So it's kind of like a nice sort of backdrop to the story. What's your favorite rock band?
Oh, fun. Gosh, that's a good question. Does it have to be a band or can it be a solo artist?
Oh, like an artist.
Okay. Well, I would say the most listened to is definitely Taylor Swift. I'm a big unrepentant Swiftie. I so admire her. Some of it, I mean, 1989 is clearly like throwback 80s like rock. And if Jack Antonoff calls it rock, then okay, he can put a crown on it and call it whatever he wants. Rock band.
I also a bit of Taylor Swift. I'm not throwing shade.
Right. Gosh, I have to scroll through my phone. This is such a great question. I'm actually like a really like an album person. I don't necessarily follow like one band or one solo artist like entire discography. So I guess like throwback rock bands. I love Fugazi. And
Right.
it's funny because I've had Waiting Room in my head for like the last 2 weeks and I've been humming it and whatever. So I love Fugazi. And they kind of have a similar vibe to, I think, Ebb's band, The Dead Undead. And yeah, I love Jane's Addiction. I've got so many like throwback bands. And of modern artists, holy hell. I'm gonna you know what's gonna happen? I'm gonna have to tell you and you're gonna have to put it in the show notes. Because it's hard to say.
When I put you on the spot, I didn't know if you had like a that's my go-to. Like my go-to is usually Queens of the Stone Age. Like I've followed them like most of my life. I've seen them in concert. Like they were the reason. Like Josh Homme was the reason that I learned guitar. You know, like it was a whole thing. I don't play guitar anymore, just for the record. I started dating and then I didn't have any time. Oh, not just date. God, that sounds bad, didn't it? I mean, like just having a social life and coursework and things. So guitar
totally understood. You know what I will say, you know, I'd mentioned before that I'm like a very devout person. I love a lot of worship music, and there's this guy who kind of straddles the line between, you know, dealing with faith and then dealing with like secular life, and his name is John Mark McMillan.
Okay.
He's like, I've seen him in concert like 2 or 3 times. I adore him. And he has this cool, very realistic understanding of, you know, this complicated relationship he has with his faith, and wrestles with these ideas of feeling abandoned or, you know, being in a religious community. He sort of started out in a like Baptist/evangelical community. As he's deconstructing his faith and as he's asking the deep questions and asking the confusing and difficult questions in his music. And also the music is great. It's almost like Southern Bruce Springsteen. Oh, and I adore him. I listened to his album Live at the something. He's got a live album and it's all of his songs and he brings in all these musicians I love. So yeah, John Mark McMillan is just like tops in terms of like, yeah, okay. I guess raw.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Like, yeah. I mean, you had me at like Southern Bruce Springsteen. I was like, yeah, I can vibe with that. All right, most important question: Team Marsden or Team Gregor? We all know where I stand.
But... Okay, I got to tell you something.
Oh, okay. Inside
scoop. Book 2. It's not a spoiler.
Not big.
I created a character who may or may not have, you know, close relationship with some of the other characters, but Felix, I'm Team Felix all the way. Felix there, and you will meet him, and he is delicious and wonderful, great fun to write, and he is blood mad, and he is sort of like that sophisticated urbane vampire character that you're looking for, and then also like, I don't know. He's wonderful. Yeah.
This description is giving Damon Salvatore to me so far.
But like colder? He's not colder.
Oh, cold.
Like, yeah, okay. He's very like
humanity cut up, like Shaft.
Yes. Yes. Hey. Because he grows up in this. That's what was really fun about writing Bloodmad, is creating Bloodmad like society from scratch. Mm-hmm. And to see how their origins could inform how they set up their society. Right. And their number one value is like essentially status, because they're all fighting for the same resources. And so Felix and his sister May, who are the best, I adore May and Felix, grow up in this environment that is super cutthroat and super, there's no affection at all in their families. There's no warmth or whatever. And, you know, having May and Felix interact with Mina, who is very affectionate, who is very warm, they're like, what is this feral little cuddly, you know, street cat? Like, who are you, Mina? And
does she become like, that pet?
She may or may not, because that's a great word for her in this, like, this little troika of like the 3 of them. Gosh, that's really funny. Yeah, she becomes a little bit of their pet, and she is I feel like Mina is very like adoptable and very like just want to care for her and like shake her by the shoulders.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so all right, not Team Gregor or Marsden, but Team Felix. All right, okay. I'll allow it. All right, okay. So if you went on the trip with the siblings, where you'll go out in the woods and take acid and shit, what do you think would be the most outrageous thing you'd do? Like what? Yeah.
I think I would make my way through every single character there. They all have an appeal. Like Bodhi is the oldest. He's got like that zaddy kind of appeal. Like Hawthorne, I would just want to corrupt him. Like he needs good corrupting. And then
target him specifically and be like, I'm not letting you go away until you are in the dregs with me, thank you. Like not necessarily up with him, but just like I want to like untie that like leash that you've put around yourself, you know, like I want to remove the stick out your ass, you know.
Exactly. And then the twins, I mean, they're a delight. There's nothing wrong with the twins.
No.
Neezy would be less interested in me than he might be in someone else. And then Mina, like, I mean, yeah, just bam, work my way through them and then call it a night and go.
Blame it on the drugs.
Yes. Blame it on that.
Oh my God, that's so unlike me. Oh. Oh, amazing. I love that answer. Well, looks like we're at the end of the interview.
Wait, really?
I don't think I did. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been talking for about an hour, I think. So, but no, yeah, we've kind of like there were other questions, but we've kind of answered them as we've kind of gone through, which is the way I kind of like to do it. But yeah, I guess just to sort of like say, pimp your wares. Like, where can people follow you? Where can you know, if you've got any other like books or projects or anything you want to talk about, or if like, or where we can find your books, and you know,
sure. Yeah. My primary way that people can find me is on Instagram, and my account is Writing Stephanie Kemler, all one word, loosely inspired by being John Malkovich. So it's like all that. And yeah, a little known fact. So Instagram, Writing Stephanie Kemler. You can buy my books from my publisher, Curious Corvid. You can order them at your local indie bookstore, or Amazon, of course. And yeah, for future projects, I have a very secret project that I have been holding close to my chest for like 3 years. You may or may not have a sort of kind of arc of it, yes.
Maybe.
But it's so different in so many ways. But so I changed my bio on Instagram it used to be Creatrix of Gothic Fiction, and now it's Creatrix of Magical Menace. So like just, yeah, so my next project is not Gothic, it's not supernatural, which this is the most information I'm telling anyone right now about it, but it's been a long work in progress, and we're turning the corner. We're getting close to like putting it out in the world. Me and my characters.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And thank you so much for sharing. I wasn't sure if you were going to, because I know it has been very hush-hush.
For many reasons.
Yeah, and like you've literally just touched the tip of the iceberg with it as well. Like there's so much more to unveil. So, which I will not do. No one asked me. It's not happening. See. I took a blood oath.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Cannot leave this room. But yeah, so that's really exciting. But yeah, and also as well, you can get these books on Kindle Unlimited for those who prefer the ebook formatting.
On Kindle, but not Kindle Unlimited.
Oh no, not is it not? Oh, can you have to buy it? Oh, did I buy it?
Yeah, but the first book, my like gateway drug book, is I think $1.99. And then it's like a normal price. It's like $4.99 or something for Kindle for the second book. But yeah, there are ebooks available for both of them.
It looks so beautiful.
I love those. Mitch Green, the cover king.
Yeah, he is phenomenal.
He's a genius.
You know, that one, and his covers, they've got such a distinct aesthetic. They are stunning. Go to everyone, if you appreciate kind of like gothic and horror art, go and check out his Instagram. Mitch Green is just phenomenal. I love him. Cool. So Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on my final episode, and and being just such a phenomenal guest. And I'm so glad that we got to do this before I sort of wrapped up shop and turned the close sign over and shut the drapes.
I'm honored, and I'm sad to hear it go, but I'm glad I got in. You've got an awesome roster of creatives who you've had on the show, so I'm glad I'm in good company.
Yeah, no, quality not quantity is what we go for here.
Yes.
And lastly, thank you so much to everyone who has tuned in, everyone who is watching this now or listening to this now, anyone who's listened to any episode, who's supported me, followed me, liked my stuff, gone online and followed my social media. Really, really appreciate it. And just all I can say is go and buy these books, support your indie authors, support the indie community. There is such a wealth of wonderful literature out there. Some absolutely phenomenal writers, present company included. And I am so grateful and so thankful to be a part of this community. And I'll still continue being the part of this community. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I've changed my handle now to Between the Pages. Because it's not going to be exclusively about this show anymore, but you'll still find all of my links and stuff on there, and I'll still do arc review reels and stuff and share memes and stories. So it's all still going to be very, very bookish, and I'll still be putting my 2 cents in here and there, as well as promoting Black Thoughts Editorial and Second Round Publishing, which are the companies that I work for, and the Indie Press. And you can also as well now follow me on X. So that is, I'd literally only just set it up. What is it? It's called, what did I write?
I love it.
So formerly known as Twitter under Turning of Pages, because Between the Pages, it's Between the Pages 37 on Instagram, and then Turning the Pages because that was not available on X, formerly known as Twitter. So that's, you can follow me on there, because for those who don't know, I got my personal accounts hacked on Facebook and Instagram, and I haven't really bothered resetting them up, and Meta's not helping me at all in getting them back. So that's kind of where you can find me. And obviously check out my YouTube channel, which will have all of these videos on, and other things, and TikTok as well is still under the old Kate Anjou's book reviews, and that will just still have the arc reviews and whatnot on there also. But yeah, don't stop supporting indie, don't stop supporting indie authors, buy and read all the books, and happy reading. Thank you so much. Bye.